Hello, this is Red Vader. I am going to be talking today about different aspects of PvP, so on as things to expect if you go into the PvP mode, recommended weapons that you might want to consider bringing, and general ideas along that side. It's going to be a very basic video in the beginning of a series that I'll use. I'll go into the PvP meta and what to expect in 6v6, 3v3, and everything in between. Let's get started. For PvP, it's going to be located in the Crucible, obviously. There's going to be multiple modes. This one will rotate every week. This one can change from things like Mayhem, 6v6 Clash, where there's no objectives. This, Survival, Trials, and Iron Banner are going to be the big three endgame points for PvP. A lot of people don't like PvP because it could be a sweat fest, but at the same time, people are always asking, why is there no good endgame content? People are asking, what's the point of chasing down god rolls you're maybe looking for if the raid is the only place you're ever going to be able to actually do it? To this, I will counter with this. While raids may be the pinnacle of PvE endgame, where you have hardcore fights to win, boss raids, things like that, it's really only challenging for day one of the raid itself. After that, you're just kind of waiting for the next day one raid. At that point, there's realistically no real reason for PvE content to be hunting down god rolls you need, because a lot of the content can be completed with essentially just blue or green level weapons, as long as they're a high enough level. You can complete it with this if you wanted to. You just take a little bit more time. What I propose is the true endgame content is going to be the Crucible, because in this, you have an actual reason to hunt down god rolls, because that will inevitably help you with your PvP content. Now, let's get started on terms of what are the three different PvP quote-unquote endgames. There's Survival, which is going to be the most basic of the three. There is no light level advantages, so anyone can come in. You can use weapons from the past, current weapons that are currently within season that have not been sunset, and your goal is essentially to get to 5500 rank. You can do this either with a team or solo. This resets each season, and after a week or so, if you don't play any comp, after a certain rank. The next one that will rotate about every month to every other month will be Iron Banner. Iron Banner will be 6v6 light enabled, non-artifact light enabled, 6v6 control. This one also has teamwork in terms of 6v6, or solo, where it's 6v6 but everybody's by themselves. No teams are initially going together, not really a lot of communication, things like that. The last one, which I can't show here because it's not available, will be Trials of Osiris. Similar to Comp or Survival, will be 3v3. Light level is enabled like Iron Banner, except instead of the Survival playlist, it's going to be using Elimination. Elimination and Survival differ for two major ways. Survival, you have a pool of lives, 6 lives shared between 3 players. Technically 9 if you include the initial starting 3. Elimination, on the other hand, everybody only has 1 life to use per round. And if your team wipes, your team loses. However, if you die, you can be rezzed by teammates. Following so far? Elimination, when a Trials of Osiris comes around, this is a good way to use, or a good tool to use when you're practicing to try to get better at PvP. When you're trying to get better in PvP in general, a lot of people will recommend just going to, say, Rumble, which is good because it's a free-for-all playlist. You're only worrying about yourself. You can focus on yourself, your aim, positioning. I like to use Rumble, however, all the endgame content isn't going to be by yourself. You will more than likely have a team set up, or you'll be in the solo playlist with teammates. Therefore, my personal recommendation is just go straight into Survival. Survival will teach you about punishment in terms of bad positioning. You may wonder why you die in certain areas. A lot of times, that just may be bad positioning. You can take what you learn from Survival playlist and bring that into Iron Banner, which will be a little bit more chaotic, or into Trials of Osiris when that comes back around from Friday to Monday each weekend when an FB comes back. If you want to get practice for Iron Banner, Control will be the place you want to go. Control is similar to Iron Banner except the light levels are not enabled, and the 3 control points cannot be locked out if one team controls all 3 for a period of time. This one's just normal control, almost like a King of the Hill, but with 3 hills. If you're looking to find a way to improve yourself, there's a few different things you need to find out. So what you need to do. 1, what is your weapon loadout going to be? 2, what is your subclass option you're going to use? For instance, as a Warlock, there's a few different options I could use. I can use Top Tree Dawnblade, which for a long time has been the king of the meta, so to speak. Another option, Arc, has 2 subclasses that are very viable within PvP. We have Top Tree Arc with Arc Web, which their grenades can chain between other opponents and causing free kills. Their super also gives them extreme mobility and can restore their health. The other one that also works too is going to be Chaos Reach, which will be a pseudo shutdown super / early pickoff potential combined with Geomag stabilizers. You also get ranged melee, abilities come back faster, and you get a movement speed buff if your shields have a break. With the newest edition of Beyond Light, we also have Stasis, which Stasis has become the meta, so to speak, when it comes to PvP itself. Stasis has enabled defensive playstyles and aggressive playstyles at the same time, while before, when Darkness was enabled, everyone's goal was to get to places as fast as possible and kill the other team as fast as possible. If you weren't doing either of those things, you were investing maximum intellect and just waiting out the other team to get your super, then you win game from there. What Stasis has enabled from their new subclass options, the freeze option for Warlock in particular, from their melee, from grenade, the instant slow from the Dusk Field, or the wall generated from Glacial Grenade combined with Hunter Dive, or the Titan Charge, can instantly kill opponents. And in 3v3 style modes, this can straight up just win fights if you hit one of these abilities. So it has changed the meta from a straight intellect build to kind of what you want to do. So for instance, for my build, I want to do high strength to max out my ability to get pickoffs with my melee ability. I have Colossal Ahamkara to get 2 melee abilities. My melee ability is a range melee that if you get hit by the melee, it freezes the target. I also get a weapon damage buff. I get more super ability, class ability, and killing them increases the size of the explosion, working almost like a grenade. In essence, Stasis, as weird as it may sound, has balanced the Crucible in a way where people may not like the aspect that the game kind of slows down and becomes less about the super abilities, but I feel like this is generally healthier for the game itself, and Stasis enables that. However, you could still go over the light itself and get broken subclasses like Top Tree Dawn, where you get incredible speed, movement that enables you to take angles that just don't exist on other subclasses, and incredible pickoff potential with things like Celestial Fire. Everything at this point has kind of become viable in terms of subclass viability options, unless we're looking at, Voidwalker. Anywho, let's get back to different things. The other thing I mentioned that you might want to prepare for is what kind of weapon you want to use. So from this, if you've played PvP before, you have a general idea of what meta might be. After the addition of Stasis and the update changes to PvP itself, we have probably the most variety in terms of primaries and specials the game has ever had. The current king of DP, in terms of time to kill, that is not a special weapon. It's going to be high impact pulses. The 0.67 time to kill. Some different options from Cold Denial would be No Time to Explain and Stars in Shadow. Each of these possess that 0.67 time to kill, incredibly fast and it almost works like a sniper rifle in terms of how fast it can get you a pick, as long as you hit those 5 head, 1 body shot. Or if you're using Headseeker, 2 head, 4 body. Other weapons that offer a bit more consistency would be things like the 120 archetype from the hand cannon, which offers a 1-second time to kill. However, it requires 1 head, 2 body at incredible range, 40 meters plus. Classic options from previous seasons, Ace of Spades, which is a 140, still offers a 3 headshot time to kill, similar to Thorn. However, with Ace of Spades combined with Memento Mori, Charge with Light, or any kind of damage buff will enable 2 taps, creating an incredibly fast time to kill as well. Hawkmoon's another solid option. Thorn, Last Word. There's also 600 RPM auto rifles, which are incredibly powerful right now too. They got a little nerf, but it has opened the door for more weapon archetypes to become viable, like the 120s, the 140 hand cannons, 340 pulse rifles. While they have the king in terms of DPS, they're highest risk, highest reward. Because if you miss that burst, your time to kill goes up dramatically. When it comes to the 600 RPMs, they currently possess, I believe, a 0.8 second time to kill now, but it's very consistent in terms if you miss body shots versus headshots. It's pretty forgiving. Primary weapons that can stay around forever, you can look into the archetypes within the exotic class. So a good 600 RPM we already went over with Service Regime and the kinetic slot. Energy slot, although it did get nerfed, Hardlight is still a very viable option as well. Another thing people don't really talk about that much, that's still pretty good, are going to be 260 scout rifles, the fast fire. These ones at range on certain maps can be extremely powerful if you use them right. 150s to a lesser extent. Vigilant Swing is another good kinetic pulse rifle that you can use. It works as a high impact. Sturm is a 120, probably the best 120 in the game currently for the exotic slot. If you don't want to use your exotic there, you can always just go back to something like the Steady Hand, True Prophecy, things of that nature. Once you decide what your primary weapon is going to be, that could be in the kinetic slot or the energy slot, you need to figure out what your special weapon is going to be. Bread and butter for a lot of weapons is going to be a shotgun. The most popular shotgun is going to be this one right here, Fellwinter's Lie. It's going to be returning in the exotic kiosk, I believe, starting on next week from this recording. If you don't have this option, there is the Astral Horizon, which is an aggressive frame, comes with a quick draw, can also run with an opening shot. Very similar to Fellwinter's Lie, but just in the kinetic slot. If you don't have either one of those options, something that is farmable right now is going to be the lightweight frame 7th Seraph CQC. Comes with quick draw, and can also run with Vorpal and Assault Mag, making so that way you can have some pretty decent range, good fire rate that you can use to kill multiple ones at a time. It can run with a Vorpal, so you can use it well against supers, so you can go shotgun melee to one-shot a super, most supers in the game. The secondary option people like to use for their special weapons is going to be the sniper rifle. Sniper rifles, while their aim has become slightly nerfed with their aim assist, weapons like Adored is still extremely powerful, being able to pick off people at essentially any range, shotgun range, or the entire map range with weapons like this with Snapshot, or if you're using something like Hipfire Grip, you can be able to hit the shots a lot easier. Another option, those would be the primary 2 options I'd recommend. But there's one more option that can be kind of cancerous if you're not able to hit your shots too well, and you want to keep that medium range distance, would be grenade launchers. Specifically grenade launchers with proximity mines, proximity grenades, in this case. You want to combine this with freehand sling, I believe? Yeah, quick access sling. And so you fire it off, get a kill, or weaken the enemy with proximity grenades, swap immediately to your primary weapon, and get a quick one-shot onto the kill. This one can be very cancerous, and prepare to be teabagged if you do use something like this. Then we have the off-meta options for your special weapons. That can include things like Bastion, which has insane range, and if you time it right, can work better than a shotgun. We also have things like Jotun, which have almost infinite range and tracking. However, if you know how to fight against it properly, you can dodge it. Duality has been another option too recently that's kind of popped up because it's both a slug and a spread shotgun at the same time. Cloud Strike is really good in PvP too because if they get hit by the AoE, it's a one shot onto any Guardian. However, many people like to use legendary weapons for their primary and their special weapons. The reason is they can use something like Icarus Grip to enable the weapon to be a bit more accurate while in the air, or they can use things like Freehand Grip where it's more accurate while firing from the hip. Exotic weapons, sadly, do not have this option. However, exotic weapons don't rotate. So if you want to get good at a weapon in particular, or archetype, I recommend starting with an exotic you may or may not have. So if you want to get good at 340s, start with No Time to Explain. If you wanted to get good at 120s, there is Stern. If you wanted to get good at 140s, if you don't have access to Ace of Spades, Thorn, the newest one that just got dropped, Hawkmoon, is another really solid option you can use. If you want to get good at 600s, you got Monte Carlo, Soros Regime, and Hardlight. You have many different options to be able to practice these weapons and get a feel for them. You just got to find out what's the distance for these weapons. For pulse rifles, it depends on the weapon. It normally is about 33 to 38 meters. If you go longer with weapons like Stars and Shadow, which have a higher range stat due to its zoom. If you're using, say, like a 140, it's going to be very similar range where it is up to 36 meters, I believe now. The crazy ones are going to be like the 120s, where they can get up to 40 plus meters in terms of their range. However, they're not nearly as good at close range. 600 autos, also in that same range, within 35, less than 40 meters. You just got to figure out what range do you like to fight in and enable that. Your energy or your special weapon should be able to complement that. Are you going to be using your primary weapon to fight a bit further away from people, like a pulse rifle? You're going to want the shotgun. If you're still going to be keeping your range and at all times, something to consider would be a grenade launcher, or even a fusion rifle. If you want to go super long range, you're on Widow's Court, and you're going to be playing as far back as possible, consider running a sniper. If you're running a hand cannon, it's very similar to a pulse rifle where you can essentially run almost anything with it. So for Ace of Spades, you can run with Felwinter or Adored if you wanted to. If you're running with something like The Last Word, other hand, it's better run with this with something more range because The Last Word has less range than almost all other archetypes of hand cannon. Lastly, we should get into would be the heavy slot. Heavy slot, you can go one of two ways, or three ways, I should say. One, fire and forget, aka shutdown, would be something like the Warcliffe Coil. You get one ammo off a brick from this weapon, you fire it, and you're done. You're done. You don't get any more. You can get multiple kills, but you essentially only get one ammo. You can get the chain style weapons like heavy machine guns, which will enable you to get a bit more ammo, and it will enable you to get more kills over a longer period of time. It's not just fire and forget. You can also get shutdown weapons such as tractor cannon, where if you're expecting the opponent to have a super ready, and you need a way to shut that down, tractor cannon or Warcliffe Coil or Black Talon are really strong options to shut down a super or someone in particular. Lastly, I should also mention swords. Swords are their own different animal because while swords themselves are not strong as a PvP weapon, they enable you to be able to peek down lanes and make sure you don't expose yourself in the process with 3 peeking. While this may be considered cheesy, it is something to consider if you believe you're strong enough to use your kinetic and special without really using your heavy slot. Black Talon's kind of the exception to the rule where it's a strong heavy weapon in general because of its ranged melee attacks. That's going to be the general idea of what to expect for PvP weapons. You got 340 pulses, 600 autos, and hand cannons either in 140s or 120s. Those are going to be the big 4 archetypes to look forward to if you're playing PvP. There will always be exceptions to the rule. For instance, scout rifles are usable on certain maps with things like the guiding sight, excuse me. Bows can be used to an extent, but I don't think they're good. Sidearms are very lethal in extreme close range, almost within shotgun range. That's the one part that kind of catches up to sidearms, is that you're fighting within shotgun range, which is a one shot. However, there are sidearms you might want to consider, like Traveler's Chosen or the Devil's Ruin, which can kill extremely fast, and it can either give you your abilities back, or it can even one shot at times. Once you've figured out what kind of weapon you use, you would want to consider what your subclass option is, or, to a bigger extent, what you want to build around. So, one thing you want to consider is if I'm running a pulse rifle shotgun rocket launcher, I essentially have most ranges covered. How do I want to play with the rest of my game though? Because while we can point and click with any of these weapons, there is much more to the game than just pointing and clicking. We have movement, we have grenades, we have melee options, and each of these vary per subclass. And within each subclass, we have 4 mini classes to use. So we have Hunters, Warlocks, Titans. Within the best of each one, I argue the best Hunter subclass is either Stasis Hunter or Bottom Tree Void Walk, or Middle Tree Void, excuse me. Another strong option would be Bottom Tree Arc. For Titans, you have Top Tree Void with the Bubble, which is extremely strong in 3v3. You have Bottom Tree Striker, which is probably the best non-darkness class for Titans. The best Titan subclass would probably be Stasis. Warlocks, I already spoke about, would be Top Tree Dawn. We have Middle and Top Tree Arc, and probably the best of the Warlock classes would be Stasis. When you have figured out what you want to have your subclass be around, the next thing you should be considering is there a specific thing about the subclass that may or may not be more powerful than the rest? For instance, if you look at either Top Tree Dawn or Stasis, probably the most powerful thing about these classes is their melee abilities. So your goal would be to max out that ability. One thing you want to make sure though, and make sure you have this, is as high as recovery as possible, either 9 or 10, no matter what your class is. While Warlocks get the benefit of getting both their rift reduction lower with recovery, recovery itself is possibly the most important stat in Crucible because it enables you to get out of fights and get back into them faster than anyone else. Movement itself won't be nearly as important because movement you can just adjust via your jumps, or if you're using certain subclasses like Top Tree Dawn, your Icarus Dash will just essentially get you out of the game for free. For Stasis, we're abusing the freeze melee ability here and getting 2 charges of it. With this, it enables us to get free kill with a high impact pulse with 1 burst. And with that, we can use that to chain off to get even more free kills. You have to look at different things like that when you're initially building a build itself. I'll go more into that different video though. However, to reiterate, let's look one more time into what the meta is and what we should expect from our class itself. Meta itself for primary weapons is going to be 340s, 600, 120s, and 140s. Special weapon meta, shotgun, snipers, the occasional grenade launcher if you want to get teabagged, and if you're feeling frisky, something like Bastion, or something like Telesto, or Jotun are very viable options as well. Heavy slot, you want either a one shot and be done with it if you feel confident in your PvP, kinetic, and energy slots. If you want something that you can chain more kills with, get something like a machine gun, which you can get more kills with over a longer period of time. It's not just one shot. or run something that can be a shutdown, like a shotgun, tractor cannon, or Black Talon with the heavy attack. Thank you for watching this. I will get back to you with another video.